Hello, I'm Rob from Mantic, and today I'm joined by my glamorous assistant Martin.
Hello.
To show you at home how to play Overdrive.
So Rob, what is Overdrive?
Good question, Martin. Overdrive is the new supercharged, fast-paced arena sports game set in the Warpath universe. And today we're going to explain how you play a rush, how you slam people aggressively, your favourite thing, how you can score, and basically how you win the game. So we're going to break it down into each segment, and then you'll know by the end of it how to play.
I can't wait.
Let's get going. So this is the Overdrive arena, and this is where the magic happens, Martin.
It certainly is bright.
Yeah, well, that's because it's a sci-fi game. It's a bit like sort of UFC, wrestling, that sort of thing. Very bright, very colourful. You know, people are watching across the galaxy to see how these players perform in the arena. So I guess the main thing, the most important thing in the main mode of game is these areas here. These are the scoring zones. And what will happen is from Rush 2 onwards, one of these will become active, and then you've all just got to basically charge in and try and take control of it. It's like extreme musical chairs.
For the people at home, do you want to explain what's around the edge of the arena?
Yeah, sure. So we'll go through everything here. So this is the rush tracker. So there are 8 turns that we'll play. Here, you've got something called the Overdrive counter, which we'll talk about in a bit. But this is important. This is, well, as you might expect, the fact it's called Overdrive, the Overdrive token and Overdrive abilities are very important. Here, you've got your action tokens. So you've got 4 actions to play. You can activate each player up to 2 times, and we'll come to that in a minute. Sadly, this is where your players might get knocked out.
My players or?
Your players specifically, yeah. So what will happen is, if you get reduced to 0 health points, a player comes off, recuperates, but then can come back on. So one of the good things is, none of your players ever die or get knocked out for the entire game. They can come back on the following rush. This side is the score tracker. Now, what happens is when you score, this actually goes back and forward, a bit like a tug of war, I guess, really. Mm-hmm. So rather than a normal sports game, where if you score, it would keep coming towards me, and then eventually, you know, it might be 3-0, 4-0. But what will happen is, if you score 2, and then I score 3, it would go 1, 2, 3, backwards and forwards. If you do ever get to 8, then it's a shutout, and that's the game ended, because no one wants to see that woeful display. And then back around here, we're back to the same thing for you: Overdrive tokens, action tokens, and your subs bench. And that is the entire board. Okay, so now we know what we do in the arena, where the scoring points are. It's time to pick our team.
Can't wait.
Now, unusually, Martin, this is a bit different to a game like Vanguard, where you have your own warband, or Dreadball, where you have a team. Now, what we are fantastic, famous coaches. We travel around the galaxy in a space shuttle with our entourage and fans. We get to an arena, and then what we actually do then is, when we get to the arena, we pick our players. So here, we've got the 6 players, or giants, from the core game. And what we do in the kind of standard game, they all line up here, waiting to be chosen. So it's a bit like when you're in the school playground and you want to choose your favourites, you put them on your team. So it's, the technical term is drafting.
Are there any other ways to draft? Do you want to get into that now, or is that something for a later video?
Well, what we'll do is we'll draft our team now. We'll show you how the simple mechanic works, and then I'll talk about what would happen if you want to have a little bit more advanced drafting.
Yes, sounds like this.
So I'm the home player. I get to go first. So what you do is you look at these and you think, okay, well, which sort of character do I want to play? So they're all very different.
And so just a quick question. So when you're picking your 3, are you aiming for kind of individuals, or would you have a kind of synergy in mind? Or
I think it's totally up to the coach. I mean, personally, I just choose the ones I like the most individually, but I know in the past you've looked at ones that are synergistic, there we go. And you can look how their abilities might combine, or even how their overdrive might combine with something.
So you could even have a bit of both. So you could have maybe 2 that synergise and 1 like a lone hero, almost, that will go and do stuff on his own.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good way. So there's lots of different tactics, and when we talk about the advanced kind of drafting, you'll see there's even more mental mind games that go in as well. So I'll be the first player. Now, as you know, Martin, I like slightly weird, quirky characters. So I'm going to pick Cynic Docker, the space jellyfish, because they have a really good move where they can mind control characters. So I basically just take it, put it on my side, and now I've chosen that character. So now it's up to you.
Well, as you know, I quite like to play a kind of aggressive in-your-face characters. So there's a couple that might fit that, but there is one that absolutely stands out, and that is Caradon the Shark face. So he'll be my first pick.
Okay. Now you've picked Caradon, who's very, very good at hitting, quite strong, quite fast as well. So I think I want something a bit more defensive this time. So I'm going to go for Dozer, the Pteraton, who is able to hide in her shell when things get a bit too scary.
Very you, no?
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe to help pull and push characters in the way, maybe set up Caradon for some tasty slams. I'll take the Spawn because he can pull people out of position and maybe set those up for in the game.
Yeah, particularly in this mode, actually, positioning and being able to move other players around is really key, because if I'm stood in one of these scoring zones and you want to get me out, then actually pulling is a really great way to get me out.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
the scoring zone thing. Obviously, that's
you're just thinking about hitting me. That's fine. Okay. Well, I've got quite a good defensive option here. I think I want someone who's going to be a guaranteed hitter, a bit tougher as well. So I think I will finally go for Brank Reborn.
Okay. So as I was saying on the preamble, I think these two work quite well from a synergy point of view.
Yeah.
And to round that off, I think Scarathon works quite well in that as well, because he is very good from range.
Yeah.
So he can potentially put wounds on from range, which sets up Caradon to do his Overdrive ability, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. So in the core game, Scarathon is the only one with a ranged attack. So that's quite a good little tactic there.
I think I've got a bit of a mixture there. I've got some hard hitting, some movement shenanigans, and also some ranged attack.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've drafted our team. If you were playing sort of in a league or in a tournament, you would probably do the advanced drafting. So that's a bit more tactical, I guess. What would happen is you would line up your 6 characters here. So I would line up my 6 characters here that I want to play, and you would line up your 6 here. And then what we do is we actually take it in turns to choose our 3 players from our own lineup. But what would happen is, if we had the same player, for example, I had Brank and you had Brank, if I select Brank first, it means that you can't select them. So it's almost like that mental mind games where you're looking at their selection and thinking, okay, what sort of game are they going to play? And then trying to get first blood by taking away some of their favourite characters.
And I guess that also helps promote not just playing with the same 3 all the time, to have a bit of a mixture of different giants. So if you do suffer that when you're drafting, that you're able to play the game with not just your favourite 3, but maybe the secondary.
Yeah, and it also, I think one of the key things about Overdrive actually means that every single new giant, new player that we release can be used in your team. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, I don't know if you know, Martin, but I like goblins.
Do you?
Yeah, so obviously when a new goblin release comes out, I'm really excited. When a dwarf comes out, I spit on the floor. So the great thing about when we release new players for Overdrive is you can immediately sort of add them into your roster potentially and start using them. So all releases are kind of usable by everyone.
And I noticed there aren't actually any goblins are you upset about that?
Not yet.
Okay.
There's plenty of time. Okay, so now we've drafted our team. Let's get set up and start slamming. So we've selected our teams now, and it's time to start setting up so we can get stuck in.
So you selected your team, I selected the winning team.
Sure, let's go with that. So what happens is I set up all my players first, and what I can do is I can put them in any of the scoring zones on my side. Now obviously, in the first rush, none of the scoring zones are active. We're just all about getting kind of stuck in, kind of manoeuvring and positioning ourselves to get ready for the second rush when one of these will become active. Mm-hmm. So depending on what sort of player you are, you might want to be defensive and sort of hold them back to begin with, or you might want to get sort of in your face and start playing. So I set up on mine first. So Cynic Docker is quite weak, so I'm going to keep them at the back here. Dozer's pretty tough, but she's slow. She's only got a move of 4, so I'm going to put her here. And then finally I've got Brank. Now Brank is a bit of a beast. He's quite tough, good at slamming. and also can reduce the amount of wounds he takes. So I'm not too worried about him, so I'm going to put him there. So once I've set up mine, you sort of have a little bit of advantage because you can see how I've positioned myself and you can respond to that.
Okay, so I know these two are tough as nails, so I'm thinking maybe I should go with Caradon over here to try and hunt down your jellyfish.
Yep.
I've got the Spawn, who I'm going to put here, to hopefully move you around a little bit.
Yep.
And then I've got Scarathon over here, so I can start doing some ranged attacks.
Okay, so now we're all set up. We kind of know what's within the arena. We know how to score. One thing as well, actually, talking about scoring is, now I've talked about these active scoring zones. So for those, you'll get a point, or you'll get a bonus point if you're stood like that in the scoring zone. So you can potentially get 2 points if you're stood here like that. What you can also do is you can also score points by knocking out your opposition. And that's an immediate score. So these are at the end of the rush, but if I manage to knock you out, that's an immediate 1 point to me. So for example, because this is definitely what's going to happen, Brank would come over here, slam Caradon to oblivion, and then I'd get a point, and that would come ding ding to me like that. So there are two, in this mode of play, there are two different ways to score. You can either secure the active scoring zones, kind of like King of the Hill, I guess, if you're playing a video game, or you can punch people and take them out, or use the ranged attack. So there are two different ways to score, so that's worth bearing in mind when you're starting to play. So now we're all set up. I think we're ready to start moving around and slamming in. Okay, so now we're going to do some movement and explain how that works. So I'm going to activate Brank first. So I use one of my action tokens, put it near Brank's card to show that I've activated Brank. So remember, you can use 2 of these on a character. So you're not going to be able to activate everyone twice. So that's another tactical element. You've got to kind of manage who you want to kind of activate. And what will happen is I activate a character, then you activate a character, and I activate a character again, and so on, until we've used all our action tokens, and then that's the end of the rush, and we carry on. So when it comes to moving, it's worth first of all pointing out the threat hexes. So here, you can see that I've painted the front 2 hexes of my base red. So here again on Caradon as well. And that's because they are the threat hexes. So you've got to kind of watch out for those when you're moving around. So the ones that are painted red affect these areas here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that'll be important when we come to slamming and when we come to ranged attacks as well.
So can you actually, I know you're going to get to the movement in a moment, but can you actually spin on the spot without using any of your movement numbers?
Yes, yeah, you can. So for example, Brank has got a movement of 4, and that means they can move 4 hexes, or make 4 move steps, I guess. But if I wanted to just turn around on the spot, like that, that doesn't count.
So you're pivoting from...
You're pivoting, yeah.
Are there any other ways to pivot?
Yeah, so what you could actually do is you could actually pivot on, like you imagine, on one of your things, and you pivot like that, and that would count as 1.
Okay.
So that's just like shifting your weight slightly to get into a different...
So as long as you're not moving your hexes into a different area of the map, if you're staying within those 3, that counts as no movement.
Yeah.
You can just spin around as much as you like. You can do
That's right.
full 180 if you wanted to.
Yeah. But as soon as you start to move into new hexes, that's when it counts as a move. So when you want to move, you can kind of go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a very simple move. But you can be a bit more complicated as well. So you can go 1. You can turn at any point as well. So you might go 1 and then turn here to go 2, 3, and then you might turn again. And I don't know why you do this, to go 4. Well, actually, you might want to do that if you want to get into the rear of someone.
I think you got lost.
Yeah, so bear in mind, you can turn at any point during your movement, and you can turn at the end. So I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I might decide, okay, well, I don't want to show too much of my rear, maybe to the spawn, so I might turn at the end to there. So if you have played Dreadball, because obviously Dreadball has got giants in as well, this is very different to that. We've made it a lot easier to move around the arena rather than kind of getting bogged down. So
And I guess with the pivoting, as soon as you've done it once, it'll then become second nature on what you can.
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, and I think that once you've moved around a few times, it's dead straightforward. So you might also want to extend your run. So say occasionally, I've moved 4 there, but I might think, actually, I really want to. Well, I can't quite get to Scarathon here. Well, I might be able to actually. So you might want to extend.
So, for example, if I was there.
Yes, okay, so I've moved this way and I really want to kind of come in and slam Caradon. So then you can do something called a dash. Now, that is a test. It's like a speed test in this case. And the way that the test and the dice rolls work, it's actually fairly standard actually across the board. And that's very easy actually. So you nearly always start with 3 dice. And depending on the type of test, it will say you need like a number. For example, it might say, Spawn's got drag test 1. And that means for that to be successful, it needs 1 success. You might have another one which is dash test 1, 2, 3. And the way that works is for the first test, you need 1 success. For the second test, you need 2 successes. And for the third test, you need 3. And then finally use also another test which is like strength test X, and if it says X, that means it's an opposed roll. So I roll and you roll as well. And just like Dreadball, 6s do explode. So there's always that unpredictable element that you might get an extra kind of bonus as well. Mm-hmm. So let's say in this situation, I want to try and dash with Brank. Unfortunately, Brank is pretty bad at dashing, as you would expect. So he's got speed 5+, so that means I need to roll 3 dice and get a 5, which I don't. Typical.
But if you did, then you would be able to continue along your way
and move there. Yeah.
And complete your slam.
Now, because I didn't, what happens is I stay in the hex that I'm in, or the hexes, and I take a wound counter and just pop it near my card. Mm-hmm. So you don't get knocked down or anything like that. It's just you all imagine they've kind of stumbled, maybe tripped up, twisted their, well, I don't know how a robot can twist their ankle.
He punched himself in the face.
Yeah, maybe you got short-circuited.
Yeah.
But you take a wound counter, and that makes it easy as well, because you're not having to knock them over and things like that. So they just stop where they are, and that's the end of your action. Mm-hmm. So I think we've covered movement, and I imagine, Martin, you're keen to get slamming.
Let's go.
Okay.
So I want to slam your guy. How do I do that?
Okay, so which character are you slamming with?
I want to use Caradon, because he's my shark in the water.
Yep. Okay, so slamming is very, very straightforward. And it mostly always starts with a run. So you'll need to do your normal move. So for example, what you want to try and do is you want to try and get one of your threat hexes touching my base, pretty much. So you have got some options. If you imagine there's a kind of an imaginary line that goes through the base. So those front 2 and any sort of hexes in front of those are my front arc. And these ones behind me, from this one here, are my rear arc. Now, if you can get in the rear arc, it gives you a bonus. So it's actually quite good to maneuver around. So that's why fast characters like Caradon are quite good, because they are a bit more maneuverable. So I'll just explain. So let's take Spawn. I know you're not using Spawn. So if Spawn was here, that would be in my front arc. As you can see here, if Spawn was round here, that would still count as in my front arc, because all of Spawn's base isn't in the rear. To actually get to the rear, you've got to be all the way behind me, like that. And you can see here, he's tickling him with his tentacles. So what you want to try and do is you've got the option there of kind of coming in the front, or trying to get behind me and slam me from the rear. So I don't know what's your move?
So for Caradon, he's quite fast, so his movement is 5.
Okay, well let's just do a normal slam. So you come into me and you can choose whether you want to go at the front here or go where you want.
Would you always go from the closest point?
No, you can totally choose where you want. So if I just grab Caradon for a second and remember where Brank is, you can come in like that, which is 1 hex. You can come in with 2, or you can even come in here at the side like that. So the reason for choosing where you might want to slam me is because if you win, you can push most characters out of the way. So again, that's really, really key. Depending upon where they are in this scoring zone, you might want to push them a certain direction. So that might dictate as well where you're going to attack.
Is it also the fact that if you might want to set up a secondary turn with somebody else, so you might want to leave some space for them to get into as well?
Yeah.
So if you came in the front here, you might not allow space for one of your other characters to get in, whereas if I came to here, there'd probably be a little more space for them to make that attack.
Yeah, and actually that's a good question, Martin, because another thing that will happen is if you've got 2 players that have got a threat hexes on me, I'd actually get a minus in my roll for the second player. So that's one thing to bear in mind actually with the modifiers is, you know, remember when I said before, is that you have 3 dice, you stand there. The way the modifiers work, they either add or take away a dice. So for example, if I was slamming back, we'll talk about this in a minute, or dodging, I would lose a dice if I had another character, and if you was in the rear, I'd lose another dice as well. Some characters will gain a dice, so you'd always add an extra one. So you're never modifying your stats, you're modifying the amount of dice that you've got. Okay, so now do you want to come in and slam?
Okay, I'm gonna.
Okay, so slamming is a strength test. So how many dice do you start with, Martin?
3.
Great, and because you didn't start adjacent to me, it means you get a bonus dice. Now, because you've decided to slam in my front arc, as the kind of defending player, I've got 2 options. I can either dodge, which means I'll try and avoid the attack, or I can slam back. Now you may be wondering, why don't you just always slam back? It's because some people have much better agility, which you use for dodging, than they do strength for slamming.
It doesn't look the most agile.
No, Brank is awful. So Brank has an agility of 5+, which is pretty dire, whereas he has a strength of 3+.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to slam you back.
Okay.
So you roll. Okay, so let's go through. Actually, let's go through your roll first to see what you've got. So you've got a 6, a 5.
So my strength is 4, so I need a 4+.
That's right. You need 4+.
Yeah.
So at the minute you've got 2 successes. You have got a 6, which explodes.
So I just re-roll one of these.
Yeah, or you roll an extra dice, whatever. If you roll one, you misses. So still a miss.
Still a miss.
Have you got any abilities that would affect that roll?
I've got a re-roll. So one of my abilities is called Bloodlust, and I can re-roll 1 dice when I make a slam.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll do. So one of these, just the other one, was a failure.
Oh, this is 6. Hang on, this is getting tasty.
And then I don't want to use that one because I jinxed it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm getting a new one, and so that was a miss. So
Okay.
I finished with 3.
So you've got 3 successes.
Yeah.
So you talked about one of your abilities there. On the front of the cards, they have each player has their always on abilities. So that's stuff that they can pretty much always do. Now, some of them will be affecting rolls, like that one was. Some of them will be extra actions, like the Spawn has got drag, Dozer has got something called teleport, Cynic Docker has got something called push. So there'll be a mix of different things that you can do. So getting the most out of those abilities is kind of key to success, I would say. Okay, so now you've got 3 successes. I roll mine. Now I'm slamming back. I need a 3+.
Ooh.
So at the minute, I've got 2 with a 6. Okay, wow. It's gone exactly how we wanted, because now we can show what happens when I lose. So I got 2. You got 3.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I take damage. So what would normally happen is you look at the difference between the successes and the failures. So I've got 2, you've got 3, so I would take 1 damage token.
Okay.
Now, luckily for me, Brank has something called Can't Feel a Thing, which is any time this player would receive a damage counter, they reduce the total number received by 1. So in that case, I don't actually take any wounds. So Brank is really, really tough to shift. So you've got to get quite a few wounds
So
on them.
he's almost like your tank, isn't he?
Yeah, Brank the tank.
Brank the tank.
Let's coin that phrase right now. However, although you haven't damaged me, what you do get to do is push me back. And the way pushing back works is you have to push me back directly into one of the hexes like that. So you've got the option of pushing me back as long as you leave a 1 hex gap between me and you. So where would you like to push me back? Right like that. Now you've got the option of following up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either stay where you are if you want, or if you're thinking maybe of slamming Brank again with another player, you might want to follow up and get stuck in. And again, you move into basically my vacated hex. So where were you? You were there, weren't you, like that? So actually, yeah, you could only move in like that to go into the vacated hex. So you see the attack reserve. Do you want to kind of move in and kind of make sure there's another threat hex on me, or do you want to kind of stay back and potentially slam again to get the bonus? So that is how slamming works. Now, obviously, if you had come behind me and slammed in the back, I would only have been able to dodge. So not only would I have only been able to dodge with a 5+, I would have lost a dice as well. So, you know, that's a good tactical thing. If you're looking for strong characters like Brank, is normally get behind them and punch them in the back. Okay, so I think we've explained how slamming works. Next, we'll go on to ranged attacks. So I guess now we're going to talk a bit about how ranged attacks works. So while we've been waiting, I've just moved Dozer to here, just to protect Brank's rear. But I've got a feeling you want to shoot me.
Well, Scarathon is sharpening his ranged gun, whatever it is. What has he got?
Webs.
Webs.
He's a big spider.
He's a big spider. Hey, have you ever seen a spider carry a gun?
Yeah, good point. Well, maybe in the future they do, Martin.
So could you talk? So what I would like to do is get Scarathon to come and shoot your jellyfish.
Sure. So if your character has a ranged attack, it will say on their card. So I think you've got an ability called Zap.
Zap.
So that does sound more like a gun, actually. I'll give you that,
And
Martin.
with ranged attacks, is there what is the distance that I can fire?
Okay, so your maximum distance is 7 hexes.
Oh wow, it's quite.
So it's quite a long way. And what you do is, when you want to do a ranged attack, you basically choose your 2 front hexes of the point of origin. But if you want to move first, and then we'll sort of show, so you can move before you do a ranged attack, but you will suffer a -1 modifier.
So if you can set it up so you don't move first, that's always a bonus.
It's better, yeah, if you can. If it is possible for you to not move and then shoot, that would be good because you won't have a modifier. Also, if you can shoot in the back, then just like slamming, I'll suffer a -1 to my dodge as well. But I think you're not going to be able to probably do that, so you probably just want to do a normal.
So lessons learned, trying to attack this guy is probably all for naught. So I'm going to try and go around the side. His speed is pretty good, it's 5. So I was going to pivot on the spot to here.
Yeah.
So that's 3.
Yeah.
So I was going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I pivot again?
Yeah.
5.
That's not, well, that wouldn't actually tend on the spot, haven't you? And then forward 1.
No, forward 1. 5.
Okay, so now you're in position. So we'll just explain a little bit about how you choose the routes and distances for ranged attack, because it works slightly different to a slam. So obviously in the slam you need to be right next to each other. In this one you're looking for the shortest distance to the target. So you've decided that Cynic Docker is the target, and you know that you can do up to 7 hexes. So you start by choosing which of these hexes is going to be your point of origin, and then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the actual.
So it's always in a straight line.
Well, you can. We'll come to that in a minute, but yeah, you can actually sort of slightly dodge around them.
Curve your bullets.
Yeah. So you're looking always at the shortest distance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can actually start from here. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. Or you could go from that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that wouldn't be the shortest distance for that one.
Okay, so 5 is my shortest distance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there are modifiers depending upon the distance as well. So if you're at 1 to 3, there's no modifier. 5 to 7, you'll suffer a -1 modifier as well. So the closer you are, obviously the more likely you are to hit. Now you mentioned about people getting in the way. So we'll remember where the spawn is. Actually, let's take Brank. So say if Brank was here. Now that is now blocking that route. Because you can't get 1, 2, 3, 4. It's basically blocking you getting through because you can't pass through another player. So in that case, you would have to go from this hex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So basically, you can sort of curve round like that, but you're always looking for that shortest distance. And if it's blocked completely, so say if another character's here, we're not going to be able to make the shot. So let's put Frank back here. Okay.
Okay. Start with 3 dice.
Yep.
So are there any modifiers that would be from a distance of 5?
Yeah. So you'll get -1 for a distance of 5, and then you'll also get -1 because you've moved.
Okay.
So you're only on 1 dice.
And this is under a which test?
It's a skill test, this one.
Test. So Scarathon's skill is 4, so I need a 4+.
Yep.
And I got it.
Okay. So I can only dodge. So it's not like a slam where I can slam you back. I can only dodge. So I have my full quota of 3 dice. Now, luckily, Cynic Docker has an agility of 3. Wow. So I've got 2 6s in
More
this.
than enough.
So I roll. Okay, so typical with the 6s there. I end up getting 2. So now nothing happens. You know, the web in this case just shoots past my tentacles that are wobbling in the wind, and that's it. It's worth actually mentioning now about dodging. When you're dodging in a slam, and if you win, so say for example if that had been a slam and I'd won, I get to make a free 1-hex move.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite useful for actually backing away from someone and getting out of the way. And some characters that are coming out in the future actually have then a different ability, which means when they get to make that 1-hex move, they can then do something else as well. So agile players are really tactical about, again, moving around the board and getting out of the way. So that is how a ranged attack works. Unfortunately for you, you haven't done much, but at least you tried.
Yeah.
So after being shot, obviously my space jellyfish has got a little bit wibbly wobbly and has decided to run away just to get out of potentially any more kind of ranged attacks from Scarathon.
Because of course I do have 2 more activations, so I could have shot again with him.
Yeah.
You know, in a later turn.
But also you could have got a lot closer.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of negate that potentially and move away so you've still got to move. But then that does mean it's your activation.
So I think it's time for an overdrive action.
Boom! Now this is when hopefully snazzy graphics will come up from Matt. Overdrive will spin on, the board will explode into flames.
Yeah, loads of neon.
Yeah, loads of neon. Okay, so an overdrive is basically each player has got a once per rush ability, but you can only activate an overdrive once per rush as well. So although you've got 3 players, they've each got their own overdrive ability, you can only activate one of those per rush. And that's a balancing issue, actually a bit like the draft. So where the draft is, you know, you can't always select the most powerful team. With the overdrive ability, you've really got to make sure you choose the right time to use it. Now, is this the right time?
I think it is the right time.
Okay, so who's are you going to use?
So I'm going to use Caradon again.
Caradon, he's your favourite?
He is my favourite.
Yeah.
So whenever I play anybody from this day forward, they're always going to take Caradon and pick them first. Thanks,
lifelong Caradon player.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks.
Okay.
So his overdrive, which is on the back of the card.
Yeah, so that's worth pointing out actually. So on the back of, on the front, you've got all their abilities, all the always on, and then if you turn it over, obviously these are prototype cards, you can see what their ability is. Now the reason for having it on the back is just so we've got plenty of room on the front for all the snazzy abilities, and then boom, on the back,
Ultra
overdrive.
snazzy.
Yeah.
Okay, his overdrive is called, wait for it, Blood in the Water. Very shark themed, I like it. Okay, shall I read it out?
Please, yes.
Okay, so spend before making a slam action with this player. If the slam action is against a player that has any damage counters, the slam has a +2 modifier to the opposing, and the opposing player may only dodge. This cannot be used when slamming back.
Oh dear. Now, unfortunately, I think you're going to use it against Brank.
Well, yeah, he's the only one with any damage, luckily for me.
So you don't have to be, obviously before you started over here and ran in, so you're not adjacent this time.
But I won't get that additional dice bonus for running in, will I?
No, you won't.
No.
So sorry, you are adjacent this time. Yeah, so you'll lose that bonus.
So I start with 3. So it says a +2 modifier. What does that mean exactly?
So that means you add an extra 2 dice.
Okay.
So if you had moved in, you'd be on 6 dice now as well, because it's a +2 for you treat it like a normal slam, and then you add 2.
And this is extra good against somebody like Brank, because as you said in one of the earlier clips, that his evasion, his dodging ability is quite poor.
Yes.
But his slamming is quite strong. But this actually stops him, allowing him to slam back.
Yeah.
So 5 dice, beautiful. On a strength 4, so I'm looking for 4+.
You
It's not so
fluffed
great.
it. So you got 1.
Got 1.
Okay, so
So
that gives me some hope. It's also worth pointing out, like I said earlier, these are kind of work in progress prototype cards. So some of the stats might change a little bit. So if you're seeing some stats in this one, they might change when the actual final game.
Are these work in progress prototype dice as well?
No, the dice they're
Okay.
the final ones. So if they don't work, you're in trouble.
So I've moved my counter to say I've used for Rush 1,
Yeah.
I've used my Overdrive, and now it's on the red. So
Yeah, that's just a visual reminder to remind you you've done it. Okay, so now I can only dodge. So again, I start with 3 dice. I don't lose anything this time because you've got no one behind me. Obviously, if you had managed to get round the back of me and do your blood in the water, that would have been even more dangerous as well.
Or even just roll a little bit better.
Well, and that. Most importantly, that. So my agility is 5+. So I get 1.
So evens.
So in that case, nothing happens. There's no turn to face, or there's no movement. No one takes any wounds. We'd be able to just stand there, growling at each other. I'd actually probably be laughing.
Okay. So let's just do a theoretical where my dice actually weren't very bad, and I had actually got all 5 hits.
Whoa!
And you, with your poor evasion, your poor dodge,
Yeah.
you weren't able to save anything.
Okay, so you've just... Wow. So you've just put... Well, I would have had can't feel a thing.
Yeah.
So it would have still given me 4 wounds. So I would have taken my wound counters. There's 4. And that would actually then take me to 0 HP. So in that case, what happens is I come off the board. You know, I have like a short circuit. Maybe my arm pops off, something like that. And I would be put onto one of these knocked out spaces down here. And then obviously you would have followed up or stayed where you were.
Or laughed in a shark-like manner.
I don't know how sharks would... How do you think a shark would... Exactly right. So now what's happened is Brank's come off. That means he can't come on for the rest of this rush. But it's not game over for Frank. It's not like he's knocked out now for the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
What'll happen is he'll come on next rush if he wants. He'll clear all the wound counters off. Any status effects as well, because some characters, like Scarathron actually, can poison characters. So if they get wiped out in the meantime, all that's wiped off. Mm-hmm. Tigrax can stalk a character or can reduce their movement as well, and all that would be wiped off. Okay. So basically it's like the Medibots, or in Brank's case, the engineers are there, ready to fix them up and shove them back on, ready for the next rush. Now when I come back on, I kind of put myself there at the end of the rush to remember, and then I can actually come on from anywhere along my back line. So I come on, that would be 1 like that, and then 2, 3, 4. So Brank will live to fight another day. So that is your Overdrive. We won't bother showing any of mine because you've obviously done such a great job on yours.
Pretending to do a successful Overdrive, yeah.
So I guess what we'll do now is we'll play a few more rounds and then we'll show you kind of what happens at the end of a rush as well. So now we're at the end of the 3rd rush. We've had some, well, pretty brutal exchanges in the previous 2 rushes, and you're 3 points up, which I'm very sad about. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to explain what happens at the end of a rush and how you choose the next scoring zone. So the current scoring zone is number 6 here. So we've put one of the little tokens. So you can use these tokens for showing you where the scoring zone is. You can use them for status tokens as well. So they're like little extra tokens. You get 4 of those in the box, which you can use for whatever. Mm-hmm. Now in this situation, you can see that you've got all your base in, and so have I. So you must have your entire base in. So for example, if I was here, that wouldn't count. Mm-hmm. You've got to have all 3 hexes occupied. So at the minute, I'm in a standard hex. I'm just here. So I would score 1 point. And you are actually stood on the bonus hex. So that means you get an extra point. So now we look, see what's happening here, because it's contested. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't been in here, you would have scored 2 points. Mm-hmm. But because I'm in here, what happens is my 1 point is kind of cancelled by your 1 point. But because you're on the bonus one, that means actually the point will go to you.
It's happening.
Yeah. So that's something to remember. If it's contested, you kind of look and see if there's any difference. So, for example, if I'd been here and I'd been in the bonus hex as well, we both would have scored 2 points. It would have cancelled each other out. And obviously, if that had been taking you to 8, that would have been the game over. If there are multiple people in, so say I'd been there and somehow I'd squeezed Cynic Docker in, I would have got 2 points for that, 1 point for that, in which case your 2 is minus off to 3, so I'd only get 1 point actually for that one. So basically, if it's contested, you look at you compare them and see who's got the most. So at the end of that rush, so you got your 1 point, and at the end of the rush, we decide where the next scoring zone is for the following rush. So to do that, you roll a dice.
Would you like me to do that, Robert?
Yes, please, yes. So 4. So that means next rush, look at that, perfect for you. The active scoring zone will be 4. So as you can see, once you start to get into like the third, fourth, fifth rushes, movement becomes a real key because you've suddenly got to start moving that way. It could have been that one, it could have been over here as well. So there's a real sort of a dilemma of do you get stuck in and go for the other players, or do you kind of keep, Caradon's in a good position here in the middle.
Take his pick, really.
Yeah, do you stay safe in the middle, or do you just actually leg it towards this one? So the active scoring zones are randomised at the end of each rush from the first rush onwards. So remember, that first rush, there's no active scoring zone. It's just about kind of weakening your opponent, getting stuck in, maybe starting to think about positioning. And then from rush 2 onwards, you kind of roll to see where the next rush will be, next scoring zone will be. And then obviously, if we were carrying on, you would recharge your overdrive token, you would move the rush counter, and then away you go.
Guy to come on.
And yeah, my guy would come already back on. So that is what happens at the end of a rush. And there you have it. That is how you play Overdrive. Now, obviously, we only played a few rushes. Martin was winning. I probably would have gone on to win.
And that's why he called it, because he didn't want to actually lose.
Yeah, so on camera, I didn't want to be shown losing. Now, what we've shown you there is only the sort of standard game mode. And what you'll find in the rulebook is 5 other game modes as well, slightly more experimental. So you've got Pass the Bomb, which is a bit like TIG or tag, but with a bomb. It's explosive. So you've got to be careful there to make sure you're not holding the bomb at the end of the turn. And that introduces a new move, which is Pass the Bomb, which means you can shove the bomb onto someone else and hope it explodes on them. You've also got Capture the Flag. So in that one, a flag appears in the middle of the arena, and then you've all got to kind of dash and grab that one. So that one's a bit more, whereas Pass the Bomb, you tend to find that everyone scatters. In Capture the Flag, it's more that everyone's kind of clashing together.
And those are still 3-on-3, aren't they?
Yeah, all 3-on-3, and it's all the same drafting mechanics and all things like that. You've got Killing Streak, which, as the name would imply, is just about killing each other. So in that one, a player can go on a killing streak and start getting bonuses for being particularly aggressive. So I imagine that will suit yourself.
Love that game.
Yep. You've got Invade. So Invade is quite an interesting one because all the scoring zones are active. So the home player is trying to get into the scoring zones of the visiting player.
You can't do that.
Yeah, so the blue team is trying to get into the yellow team. So in that one, you've got to kind of make the decision of, okay, do I hand back and defend, or do I kind of go all out? The other slight quirk in that one as well is that when you've scored a zone, it deactivates for the next rush. So it means you can't just basically get Dozer in and keep going in a shell every turn and keep scoring.
I guess again, it's another one of your synergy type things. You might want a kind of a lone sweeper at the back to be able to cover your own zones, and then 2 guys charging up. Or...
And actually, it's interesting to see how the different modes work, because we've had like playtest days and things where in the standard game, Brank was really getting stuck in and wanted to kind of take characters out. But when we started playing the Pass the Bomb, because it's a dodge test to avoid getting the bomb, he was a complete liability. So he was desperately trying to run around and kind of stay out of the way. So you'll see they change slightly. And then the final mode is Dodge Brawl, which is a bit like Extreme Dreadball. So a ball pops up in the arena, and the only way you can score points in that one is by killing your opponent winter dodgeball. So that's probably the craziest of all the modes, because the ball pops up, you grab it, you can almost throw it straight away. If you miss, another ball pops up and things like that. So there's no scattering the ball or anything like that. It's very, very quick, that mode. And again, different characters shine in that one because it's a skill test for throwing the ball, and you can catch it as well. So some of them are great because the ball will flare and they'll catch it like that, and other people will just desperately try and dodge it.
And what about league play and that kind of thing?
Well, Martin, you're right. There is league play in Overdrive. So in the rulebook, you will find rules for playing a league, but I guess it's slightly different to a typical team-based one, because what you're doing is, like I said in when we were talking about setting up, is we are coaches. So it's all about how you gain experience as a coach during the league. So you start off as a rookie. You'll get one sponsorship deal. So a sponsorship deal is how you can earn extra cash in a game by doing certain things or playing in a certain way.
So it's kind of more scenario based with cards, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so on the cards you'll see that each character has 2 keywords. So there's alien, terrifying, defensive, tough, and some more as well. And what will happen with the sponsorship deals is you'll get cash depending upon how those characters act. So it'll be like, you imagine that it's the big corporations. If they make some snazzy sneakers, they will obviously want the agile players to be showing off those sneakers and acting in a certain way to show them off best, and then you'll earn extra money. And then the other thing you get are coaching abilities. So that is like our ability to get the best out of the players when they're on the pitch. So it might be that they get an extra wound, or they might be able to dodge slightly better, or they might get +1 on catch tests, those things like that. And as you go through the league, you earn more sponsorship deals, you earn more coaching abilities as well. You can get coaching calls, so that's re-rolls. So if a roll has gone particularly bad, it's a bit like VAR, I guess. The coach can say, no. I just want go to the cameras and let's have a look at the replay. And then they'll say, oh yeah, that was wrong, or he wasn't in the scoring zone, that sort of thing. And then you can also start to add players to your initial lineup. So the league is suggested to use the alternate drafting rules. So you select your 6, and then they're the players you start off with. But as you go through, you might realise, oh, actually, I could do with some ranged attack, or perhaps Dozer would be a better option. You can then spend your credits to add them to that starting lineup. So you've just got slightly more options in different scenarios. And of course, as we release new players, you can add them.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, you were talking about adding new giants. What's the plan for new team members and players?
Yeah, so in the core game you get these 6. So that is Brank, Dozer, Cynic Docker, Caradon, Scarathron, and the Spawn. And they've all got little background pieces. What we're then going to do is release Rivals packs. So these are players that have got a grudge against each other. So at launch we'll have Tigrax and Shadow, and then every quarter we'll release a new kind of Rivals pack.
We're doing a Rob Martin pack.
I'd be like a giant goblin. What would you be?
Oh, whatever the flavour of the moment was.
Okay, you're a lifelong Ratkin player at the minute. So
Yeah.
Well, actually, there is a Veerman player coming out, Nor. So she's really good. She's fantastic at evading and knocking people over with her tail, that sort of thing. So there you go. Now you know, and Martin knows, how to play Overdrive. We're going to start our league straight after this.
Can't wait.
What's your coach name going to be? Okay. Terrified. Genuinely terrified. Mine would just be Rob the Winner Berman.
It's an ironic name.
How dare you. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Overdrive is out this autumn, and we're going to have lots more on it in the run-up to launch. You can pre-order now, this minute.
Now.
So I hope you're frantically pressing that button now. So head to your friendly local game store or the Mantic website and get ready for Overdrive in September. Bye!